You're listening to the Life of Lozo podcast.
We are live here, Life of Lozo.
He is the funniest, smartest, sexiest guy I know.
Lozo is now live.
Yo, on this episode, I interview my podcasting partner in crime, Chris Stark. Chris talks about what he actually does for work, his thoughts on college rock music, and we reminisce about the time he literally had a ball and chain attached to him during an entire night. Thank you to our sponsors, Stay Tuned Studios, The Taylor Shop Inc., 03 Productions, The Beat Brigade, Rhyme Designs Clothing, Ronz War Guitars, The Music Experience, Custom Shirts and more, TheMishmash.com, STS Podcast, and of course, Jack's Nutrition. Let's go.
Yo, Life of Lozo podcast. We are live here at STS Podcast Studio O. The O is for Orlando, as the transition has happened, and now we have a satellite studio in Orlando as well as Jacksonville, and I'm excited to do this first podcast via the interwebs with Mr. Chris Stark. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I had to bring you on because you're like the ghost of all of our Hacking Your Leadership fans who constantly, people are asking me like, so what does Chris do exactly? And how long have you known him? And all that type of stuff. So I figured, what the hell? I got to have you on Life of Lozo. And as opposed to like asking me questions about leadership, I'm just going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about yourself. And we're going to have some conversation here and tell some funny stories.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because when people and your Life of Lozo listeners probably will not be surprised by this. When people ask me what you do, I say that you're an announcer at a strip club, and based on that intro, no one will ever doubt my statement again.
Remember, ladies, he works on Tips and Lumps alone. He's on stage 2. He is Christopher Stark. And his Instagram is at Stark Raving Naked. How convenient.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, so check Chris out on Instagram or Chris L. Stark on LinkedIn or, of course, hackyourleadership.com. But yeah, man, I had to bring you on. We're deep into season 3 here. I've got some new things that I do on the show. And so far, I haven't actually been able to do them because the first episode of the season was myself getting interviewed on my own show. And then, of course, episode 2 was another Golden Decade of Hip Hop episode with Sean. So this is the actual first episode in season 3 where I'm back to interviewing format. So we're going to have some fun tonight and talk through a lot of stuff here. But I guess first and foremost, like, let the people know what you actually do, because I always say like he does international consulting, but maybe give us a little bit more context into that and kind of what your specialty is.
Well, before we get into that, when are you going to stop with this golden decade of hip hop stuff and go with the golden decade of college rock and alternative rock? I want to hear you discuss REM and the
Weezer?
Gin Blossoms and Weezer. Yeah, I want to. When does White Boy Rock come into play here? Because I love Life of Lozo, man. I listen to every episode. Yeah. But the golden decade of hip hop one, you could be speaking a different language to me.
No, actually, we have that planned. It's going to be Nevuary of 1990 Never. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, stay tuned.
Just because you can't hang with good music. It's all good.
Stay tuned for I Saw the Sign, and it opened up my eyes. I saw the sign. Yeah, we're gonna go over all that shit music.
No, I said good music. I didn't say Ace of Base.
You know how I know you're gay? You know who Ace of Base was.
I don't know that I necessarily want to admit this to your listeners, but if you want to post a link in the podcast description, if you look up Ace of Base, one of the guys from Ace of Base is my doppelganger.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I'm aware. We can tell people it really is you.
Yeah. Well, then I'd be like 50.
Yeah. Well, and you're only 60, which is fine.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So consulting, man. Let's talk about this. People want to know, dude. They're confused and they have questions.
They're confused and they have questions. My elevator speech, my nutshell is that I help businesses make their environments better places to work. I'm passionate about people loving what they do. Mm-hmm. About 13 or 14 years ago, I took a position with an organization where I was doing what I loved to do. I didn't even know I loved doing it until it was given to me. You know, it was one of those things where I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
And it turned into being something that I just loved doing. And what I got out of that was the importance of loving what you do. And so what I do is I talk to organizations about how to do that better, how to make it so individuals can connect their own passions and what they love doing to the organizational objectives, because it's a win-win. The employees don't want to leave. And if the businesses can make their objectives the same as the employees, then they will often get done better and more efficiently. So there's really no downside, if you're a business owner, to making your place of work just really, really a great place, a place that people want to come to, a place where people have friends, where they care about their coworkers, and they care about the business.
Yeah, well, and one thing I know that we've talked about before, you know, you kind of have a couple specialties, around just kind of employee communication in general. And you talked about a little bit of that in like hacking your leadership and just some of the examples of like creating transparency in workplaces and really allowing people to like talk about how they feel and what they think, and how that really allows the organization to move quicker, even though it can be a little bit painful. But I also know that specifically, you know, you've been asked to do presentations and things around the millennial workforce and really how to be engaged with them, how to motivate them, you know, how to align with the things that are really, really important. And of course, you and I both being kind of, you know, on the cusp of the millennial workforce, I think that, you know, there's a lot of things that we can understand as you know, we're similar in kind of how technology came through. But I think that's a specialty because there's a lot of, you know, perceptions. There's a lot of people that talk about this generation. And many times, as you and I have talked about, like it's you informing people more about how it's not so different than a lot of the older generations, but how we need to approach that workforce and support them is different, and what they expect when it comes to work.
Yeah, so a couple things. So first off, in terms of the things that I help organizations do, transparency is important for two reasons. One, there's an old Socrates saying that paraphrases with, "When the top can talk to the bottom, it holds the middle accountable," and that's true. But it also requires an admittance to oneself that unless you are the CEO or on your very first day, you are the top, the bottom, and the middle. Most people have people that report to them, and most people also report to somebody. So if you're thinking that you want to be able to talk to somebody that's 3 levels above you so that it holds your manager accountable, believe me, there's somebody a level below you that wants to talk to your boss to hold you accountable. And it works both ways. You can't have one without the other. So I believe thoroughly in that, in creating flattened organizations where anybody can talk to anybody. There is no chain of command when it comes to communication. Nobody owns space. Anybody can play in any space they feel like they can make a difference as long as they're getting their job responsibilities done. So helping organizations foster an environment where those things are valued is huge. And then I play a lot in the software as a service space. So a lot of these things, organizations, you can't just do it with culture alone. You have to have the tools to do it too, because people can't just magically create this ability, even if the leadership at the top wants them to happen. So I've created web-based tools that allow people to communicate throughout the organization without having to go through a chain of command. The benefit of this is it helps call out pockets where the leadership isn't as good. Just naturally, when individuals from around an organization can talk to each other, it will come to the surface how the environment is different in one place versus another, because people naturally talk about that stuff. And you'll hear how someone says, I was told that I had to request time off a month in advance, and then someone else will say, yeah, I know that's the policy, but my boss just says, just let me know if you need time off, and we'll just make it. I'll do my best to make it happen. There's not really and that's different. That's a different way of operating. And if it makes people more engaged to be able to treat them that way, to not just follow this rule book and instead look at each individual situation and address it for what it is, that increases engagement. And when employees talk to each other about the differences in their environments, the people who are not getting good leadership start to hold their leadership accountable and saying, I want what they have.
Right.
So that's one step of it. The second thing you bring up is about the millennial workforce. And I'll tell you, one of my biggest learnings over the last couple of years is the things that we have tried to do to make the workplace better for millennials actually makes it better for everyone. And so we started out from the standpoint of, well, the baby boomers and Gen Xers look for different things. Millennials look for different things. And we want to make sure that if you want to retain millennials and make sure that you're not losing millions of dollars a year to turnover, that you have this environment that works for them. And they're looking for specific things. And that's really true. But that doesn't mean that the baby boomers and the Gen Xers are not looking for them. It just means that, in my opinion, they never felt like they had the right to ask for them. They never felt like they had the ability to ask for them. In my dad's generation, work ethic wasn't something you put on a resume because everybody had it.
Right.
And now it seems like there are a lot of people out there that maybe are lacking in that. So if you have it, that's a selling point, man. You put that out there. You let people know what your work ethic is like when you have it, because that's a commodity you should capitalize on. And the steps that organizations are taking to make their environments better for millennials also make the environments better for Gen Xers and baby boomers, who are quickly realizing that they wanted this stuff all along. They just didn't feel like they could ask for it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And I think it's, there's a lot to unpack there and talk about. And I think that's a lot of the content that we kind of get into somewhat in Hacking Your Leadership, and is addressing some of these things, some of these theories, some of these ideas. But I wanted to make sure that I spent a good 10 minutes, right, satisfying the people that wanted to know more about you in regards to your work and what you do. So now that we're done with that crap, I want to talk about your wedding because your brother and what we did for your wedding, I just have to tell this story because it absolutely is hysterical.
Yeah.
We, of course, previous to any wedding, you have a little bit of a bachelor party and you have a good time and you go out and do some fun stuff. But to me, the planning and working with your brother on your bachelor party and what he did for that night, upon hearing his idea and, of course, laughing for a solid 5 minutes, but then realizing that he actually executed it to perfection, was a whole nother ball game. And so why don't you tell the listeners here what he did and what he made you wear that night for your bachelor party?
Well, I have the shirt. Would you like me to?
Not even the shirt. We want to start with the shirt. We'll start with the literal ball and chain. Let's start there.
So, oh man. I've been married for more than 10 years now, man. I thought this era of my life was behind me.
No, my friend. We had many stories, many good times, but this one to me is probably one of the most classics. And of course, even when we revisited it about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, when I came to your house and we started telling the story, I laughed so hard I got a bloody nose.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
You did. We brought the shirt out, and we'll explain the shirt in a minute. We brought the shirt out, and just reading over it again.
Yes.
You started laughing so hard you actually gave yourself a bloody nose.
Yes, that's correct.
I've never seen that before. So my brother had this brilliant idea. He bought a big white T-shirt, and he created a checklist on this T-shirt, front and back, with, I don't know, maybe 12 or 15 items on it. And then he took a red Sharpie with a string around it, put it around my neck, and I had to get all of the items on the shirt checked off in order to get the key to remove the 18-pound bowling ball that he stole from a bowling alley the day before, or a few days before, and went to Home Depot and spent $5 on some heavy chain and actually drilled out the bowling ball and epoxied a chain link into it so that I had to have the chain around my ankle, and the chain was just long enough for me to be able to hold the bowling ball at my waist and walk around with it. And I was not allowed to get the key to remove the ball and chain the ball and the chain together combined probably weighed about 22 pounds. Yeah. And I was not able to get that off until I managed to get every single item on this checklist checked off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think the funny part was that he told me he was going to do this, and I was like, I got some good questions or some good things that we can put in the T-shirt, which of course they all made it on the T-shirt. But then when we got the limo to go out for the night, and he literally had this bowling ball, and we put it on your ankle with a lock on it, and made you carry it on, was hysterical. But the funniest part was when we got to was it Universal City Walk? That's kind of when we started the night, right? And we got about what 50 yards into that place. And the security guards walked up to us. Like what?
That was the best part of the night for me because I got to take it off for a couple hours.
Right.
Yeah, the security guard thought it was a weapon.
Right. He said you cannot carry a ball. We're like, it's a bowling ball. What's the problem? He goes, it's a bowling ball epoxied to a chain. Like you could kill somebody with this. And of course, like we may have had a couple of drinks before that. There was a limo driving, right? And we may have had some choice words to the rent-a-cops. But then we decided, you know what? Like, we want to go have a good time. And so they said, you have to take off the bowling ball. And we said, fine, we'll take it off. And then we chained it to a bench with a lock, and we just walked away. We're like, there you go. You deal with it, right? And we didn't know if it would be there.
I was hoping so much that somebody was going to steal it while we were there.
No, right?
No,
none of that happened. So we went to the piano bar, had a great time, checked off the shirt. And this is where I will give Chris, even in a state of somewhat drunkenness, Chris was smart enough to understand that you leave some boxes on the shirt checked off to convince people to do certain tasks, thinking that they were doing one thing so that he could check off a box of another thing. So the strategy came to work. It worked out really well. We had a good time. And when we left a couple hours later, even more so intoxicated, the bowling ball was still there, and we put it right back on your ankle. And then we went on with the rest of the evening.
Yeah. It was a fun night, but it was that carrying that bowling ball around was rough.
Yeah. That was a hard time, but it was a hell of a good story, and I'll never forget it. And that shirt will live in infamy.
Yes, it will. I'm glad you're not gonna make me read off some of those things because this is a this is a public thing. And I have a reputation to maintain. Yeah. And I was young at the time. You know, plus societal standards are different now. What we shame people on public on social media for today is different than what we shamed people for 10 years ago.
Yes, it would. That shirt would probably be the definition of bullying, political incorrectness, yada yada yada. Every other thing that we could probably get in trouble for is on that T-shirt.
Right, and so here's the thing. So the fact that I was able to wear it in public, and that no one scoffed about just what was written on the shirt.
Right.
Means that the world was different 10 years ago too. Well, how people interpreted reading it was everybody laughed who read that shirt 10 years ago. I fully believe 2 out of 3 people that I would encounter today with the exact same shirt would either roll their eyes at me or call me a jerk or punch me,
or make you do like the Game of Thrones walk of shame.
Walk of shame, exactly. Yes,
shame. No, that was to this day probably one of the funniest, most entertaining nights of my life. A really, really good time.
It was great.
It was a good time.
It was a great night.
It was a good time. So another thing that I know you're very passionate about, which you brought up already on the show, is music, right?
Yes. Depends. Music or your kind of music?
Right. Well, my kind of real music, classic music, but music in general. So
classic rock? Yeah, I like classic rock
let's
too.
Let's go classic rock. All right, we'll go classic rock, right? Yeah. We'll go classic rock. That's fine. I can talk classic rock. You know, I'm a big fan. Of your favorite band. They got some good songs, but classic rock are good. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. Like I would love a little bit of your perspective here. If I had to say to you, like, give me the top 3 classic rock bands of all time.
Top 3 classic rock bands of all time?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, when I said classic rock, I was intentionally trying to throw you off of where you were going, which is classic rap. So
no, I know better. Yeah. I know better. You it'd be no good for you.
Yeah, I mean, so classic rock. I mean, you got to figure that it gets defined differently by different generations.
Sure.
Like classic rock. I remember listening to classic rock with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that was music of call it 65 to 79 or 80.
Mm-hmm.
But now there are a lot of bands from the 80s that are considered classic rock too.
Sure.
So but as far as my favorite bands of all time, of like just any kind of bands of all time, obviously, there's no greater band on earth than U2.
Oh, U2?
Yeah, U2.
Sure.
And then I would say a distant second, but kind of tied for things that just made a real impact on my life, things that I look back on as just being kind of defining moments of my life, would be bands like Sublime, and Foo Fighters, and Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Like the defining
grunge rock.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just grunge rock too. It's what a lot of people refer to as college rock too. So that's the REM and
Sure.
And some of the late 80s and early.
Everybody hurts.
Not when listening to that.
Sometimes.
Not when listening to that music. That's good stuff, But the stuff of the late 80s and early 90s, when I was basically like 10 to 15 years old, in that genre, that time span, that's when you make a lot of your memory. That's when you do a lot of growing up, So it's natural to kind of associate that stuff with the best music.
Sure.
So that's a huge time for me. And then the late 90s and early 2000s is when I first started, going to concerts. You don't really go to concerts when you're 10.
Right. Now you've been to quite a few concerts. How many U2 concerts have you been to?
31.
Yeah, see, and I knew you knew exactly.
Of course. Yeah, how do you not know?
I mean, is that like 2 per year, or like were there years where it was like a lot more?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I made a friend who worked for Clear Channel Productions at the time, which is now Live Nation, or Live Nation bought them many years ago. But in 2001 through 2006, like that era. I had a friend that worked for Clear Channel and then Live Nation, and she went to all the U2 shows and worked them. And she and I had this deal where I would meet her at the venue, and she would come out with a backstage pass of a friend or of a coworker that was with her, throw it around my neck, walk me down to the floor, then take the pass off of me and walk away. And I wasn't able to. I couldn't go to the bathroom or go buy anything or get a drink or like nothing. I was like, that's where I was stuck. But I didn't care. It was about seeing the show, So I was right down at the stage for basically every California and Nevada show in both the tours, both the major tours they did that started in 2001 and went through 2005. And that was the bulk of the times that I've seen them. But yeah, I think it spoiled me so much on seeing them that way, that when they just did their Joshua Tree 30-year anniversary tour, the only tickets I could get were the nosebleed tickets, and I didn't buy them. I didn't buy them. I'm hoping to get them on the second leg, which is going to go on sale here soon, and be able to get floor tickets. And if not, I'll cut my losses and just buy them on eBay or something. But I won't see them from the nosebleeds ever again. It's just not worth it to me. And it was that 4 or 5 year period of seeing them that way that kind of spoiled me on it. Nice.
Okay, I can appreciate that. But that's a lot of shows though. I mean, that's 31. Like I don't know that I don't think I know anybody who's gone and seen somebody 31 times.
Oh yes, you do.
Well, you obviously.
Oh no, you know somebody else too. We have we share a former boss.
Oh,
who has seen Duran several dozen times. I mean, just lots of dozens of times. Yeah, many more than 31. I don't know how many exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I didn't know that, but now I know, and knowing is half the battle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very very cool. All right, and then so if you had to pick one song, you get one U2 song. So
it's funny you asked me this. Somebody else asked me what my favorite album was, because the Joshua Tree's been out for 30 years. Was this year's their 30-year anniversary, and the Joshua Tree has always been my favorite album, like always. and my favorite song is "With or Without You" from the Joshua Tree. But the older I get, and the more that I'm able to listen, not just from an emotional perspective, but from just appreciating the music, there's no doubt that Octung Baby, which came out in 1991, that album is a better album. It's a better produced album. It has more raw talent. It shows an evolution that the band was able to go through that Joshua Tree just didn't do. Joshua Tree was just the pinnacle of that style of music. It was the kind of like the natural peak of where they started, and this is where they took it to. But the Joshua Tree, one of the defining moments of their career was at a concert in 1988. This is before I ever even saw them in concert. But in 1988, at the last show of the tour they went on, Bono came out on stage and said, "Now it's time for us to go away and dream it all up again." And a lot of people speculated that the band was breaking up. And they retreated to Berlin and recorded Octung Baby in Berlin after months and months of fighting and being at each other's throats and really not knowing whether they were going to still be a band by the end of that. And it's just, if you look at bands that have been able to stay around for a long time, they don't stay around doing the same music. It's not just U2. If you look at Madonna and just a lot of these bands that have been around in 3 different decades, they have different styles, and they've been able to evolve their style over time and still resonate with audiences.
I probably would have gone with like Aerosmith or Rolling Stones or something like that. Not so much Madonna, because I don't know that she would be considered a band. But
I don't know that Aerosmith and Rolling Stones have really evolved their style of music as much. I mean, if you like Aerosmith, you like Aerosmith. I don't know many people who are like, I like the Stones, but only during this era or only during that era. I know a lot of people who loved U2 in the 80s, but did not like them in the 90s, or vice versa. They didn't like them in the 80s, and they loved them in the 90s.
Sure.
So I was trying to go for someone who has really just changed. When I said Madonna, changed the style of music. Like they're just, you could sell somebody on that this was 2 different artists if you pick something from the mid 80s and something from the mid 90s.
Yeah. No, okay. I'll give you that then. I'll give you that. I still wouldn't classify her as a band. But still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll give you the evolution.
All right, that's
music.
fine.
All right, cool.
That's fine.
All right.
I don't even like her that much. She just who came to mind when I was thinking about people who have managed to stay relevant without remaining the same.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? Like, were you thinking of like the He-Man cartoon and like Skeletor? Is that how you made the connection to Madonna?
What? I'm not following you. Skeletor is the man.
I know, but Madonna looks very much like Skeletor recently in some of her non-photoshopped ads.
Oh God!
Had you not seen the non-photoshopped picture?
Yes. Yeah. It's bad.
It's bad. All right. Well, something new that we're doing here in the Life of Lozo show, a little segment of the show. It's called the Same Name Game. Okay. So what I've done here is I went on Twitter and I searched your name, and I found people that have exactly the same name as you, but they do different things than you do. And so I want to tell you what they do, and then I want to tell you which one you would do if you weren't you. Okay, so these are all people named Chris Stark. Okay, so the only one I'm
familiar with is the radio personality host on BBC One.
Boom, that's number one. BBC One radio DJ Chris Stark is in the mix.
Ask me how I know that there's a BBC One radio DJ named Chris Stark.
How do you know there's a BBC One radio DJ named Chris Stark?
Because he made a name for himself. Like his kind of big break was in a commentary session he did with his radio co-host, a guy named Scott Mills, who I think is overall kind of a bigger name than Chris Stark is over there.
Yep.
But they made a name for themselves doing comedic commentary on the World Cup when it was around a couple of years ago. And I started getting, I'm not kidding, hundreds and hundreds of mentions a day on Twitter from people who did not know that I owned the @ChrisStark Twitter handle.
Right.
And he's @Chris_Stark.
Correct.
And so people would just would think they were tweeting him, and I would have to turn off my notifications for like a week at a time before turning it back on again. And what's funny is he and I have talked on Twitter several times now, and he's offered. He said, "Come out next time you're." Or I've never been to London, but he said next time you're in London, hit me up and I'll buy you a beer and say I'm sorry for all the Twitter flack you get. But sometimes I'll even have conversations with his fans.
Yeah,
like I won't lie to them.
Right.
But they'll say something to me like, I'm a huge fan or something like that, and I'll just respond back, "Thank you, I'm really glad." What? And I've gone back and forth direct messaging with people several times before they realize they're talking with the wrong person.
Right.
I think it's really fun.
And then they click your at signs, be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you respond!" Like, what the hell is the guy from Ace of Base responding to me for?
Oh, dude! I didn't know you're going there with it,
dude.
Man.
I go full circle, bro. I go with it. All right, so option number one, right? If you're not the Chris Stark, then so number one is BBC One radio DJ. Okay. Number two is an associate scientist at the Space Telescope Scientist Institute. Okay. Yep. So Chris Stark number two is a scientist and space telescope stuff. All right. Chris Stark number three is a senior graphics programmer at Escalation Studios. Okay, so graphics programmer. And then Chris Stark number four is a San Francisco-based photographer best known for compelling portraits of architectural spaces. So you got to pick one. So BBC radio DJ.
Couple of little prefacing questions here. First of all, one, you didn't find Chris Stark the musician out of Hawaii?
There was a lot. There's a lot of Chris Starks. I just picked these four. Okay.
The only reason I mentioned that guy is because he's the guy who stole my chrisstark.com web domain that I had for years and then forgot about and didn't think about it, and then he scooped it up and it was the worst day. Yeah, and he's not looking to sell it back. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So that's one.
Okay.
Second, I have I don't have an uncommon name. Mm-hmm. How are you going to play this game with someone who has a really uncommon name?
Don't worry about me and my show. Just answer the damn question, okay? Yeah.
Who would I be if it wasn't me?
Yes.
My 3 and 4 are definite no.
Okay, so not graphics programmer and not a San Francisco-based photographer.
No, definitely.
All right.
I love San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I love photography. But I don't want to put a monetary. I don't want to put an extrinsic reward behind it. I like doing photography just as a hobby.
Okay.
So it's back and forth between the two, and so can I combine them? I mean, one of my favorite people on earth is Neil deGrasse Tyson. So I would like to do a radio show on science stuff. That would be really cool for me.
All right.
So I like science a lot, but I don't want to do science. I just want to talk about it.
Okay.
So the idea of being a radio personality where I can talk about science, that would be who I would be if I wasn't this Chris Stark.
Okay. So not the radio DJ. Like, you only pick one though. You got to either be the radio DJ or
I can't be
the scientist at Space Telescope.
Can I talk about science as a radio DJ?
I guess you could have a show about science.
Right. I don't talk about what Chris Stark on BBC One talks about is what you're saying. I can talk about whatever I want to.
Sure.
Then that one. Then that one.
So just be a radio DJ, and you can choose whatever you want to talk about.
I can choose whatever I want. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if it wasn't science, then what would your show be about? If you were a DJ on BBC Radio, BBC One Radio.
If it wasn't science, politics for sure.
Yeah.
I'm a politics junkie.
Yeah. Well aware. That'd be a good show for you. I'd tune in.
Yeah, I can.
I'd tune in.
Would you really?
Of course I would. Yeah.
You would tune in so that you could go, "Oh, I can't believe he said that."
Yeah, of course.
That's why you would
it's 100%, right? Troll by Chris Stark on BBC One Radio. Okay. All right, very cool. All right.
I'm not a troll.
All right, so a part of the show that we have kept every single season, where I tend to take 90s songs that are one-hit wonders or just funny songs to me, and then kind of play off of them to get more information from people. Season 3, this section is going to be called "I Wish" by the wonderful Skilo. I wish I was a little bit taller. Wish I was a baller. Wish I had a girl who looked good. I would call her. Right? Remember that song?
Oh, I remember the song. You know, you're gonna laugh at me, but I had not heard that song before it was referenced in a stand-up comedian's act.
Oh, really?
And I heard it used in a stand-up comedian's act in probably, I don't know. I was in college, so probably like 99, 2000. When did the song come out? I don't even know.
Yeah, it was mid 90s. Yeah, mid 90s.
Yeah. So late 90s, early 2000s, a stand-up comedian used it in the show. I want to say like Chris Rock or someone like that, but it wasn't him. It was somebody else. And everybody started laughing, and I did not. And I was like, what does that mean? And I had to look it up.
Yeah.
So I have since heard it many times, but I was definitely behind the times.
All right, it's all good. So it's part of the show here. So it's I wish. So the first question or the first statement that you're gonna have to talk about is I wish I could own blank.
I wish I could own blank. I wish I could own. Wow, that's a good one. I'm not big on things and stuff. Like I don't like. There isn't a lot of things where like I wish I could own something. Like I guess I wish I could own my house outright instead of paying for it.
Right.
Because then it would free up a lot to do other things.
Okay.
To not have to worry about where I was going to live for the rest of my life.
Right.
So that would be it. But I'm big on experience. Okay, you know what? Okay, I got one for you.
All right,
because I'm big on experiences.
Yeah.
I wish I could own a frequent flyer account with unlimited miles.
Okay, so
is that
yeah?
Am I not playing by the rules? Or
no, that's fine. You can own whatever the hell you want to own. I'm just saying.
All right, So I wish I could own a frequent flyer account, like one of those like unlimited things they used to give. American used to give them out to a couple people.
Okay.
You could buy it for like $100,000, and it was just like fly wherever you want for the rest of your life forever.
So why not own your own plane and a pilot?
Yeah, because that costs money to run. I'd rather have somebody else do it for me.
Right.
But the idea of just being able to walk into an airport with a bag, not even knowing, and just looking at the departure board and being like, "Yeah, I'll take this place."
Yeah.
Just getting on a plane and going there. That I would love to do that.
But would it have to be first class? Would you sit in the middle seat in the back?
I mean, I'm 6'5", man. So
yep.
leg room helps, especially on international flights.
Yeah.
But I would still take it if it was not.
Okay, I'll take that. All right, cool. All right. I know that this is probably an easy one for you to answer because we already talked about this, but maybe you'd surprise me. But I wish I could be in the audience of a private concert by blank.
I am going to surprise you. I am going to surprise you. Because I mentioned earlier I've seen U2 up close many times. But they have a persona to them. They have regardless of how big the show is, they're the same people. They put on a show. I don't know that I would feel like I was more connected to them or like I gleaned something about them or their personalities. Being in a small show or a private show that I wouldn't get from them just being up close in a large show. They kind of have their thing that they do.
Sure.
But one of the bands that made a huge impact on me, but that I only got to see one time, was Sublime. Before the lead singer Brad Knoll died. And he died back in 1995, right when they hit it big. Like their self-titled album hit it huge, right when he died. And so I saw them in concert, and then he died. But I've seen like videos of like small private shows that they did, and I always look at stuff like that and think, wow, I would just love to be in the audience of something like that. So I don't know if it breaks the rules to pick somebody who's dead.
Yeah.
But I would love to be in a private show with the original lineup of Sublime.
Nice. No, I'll take it.
Yeah.
You can answer however you want. All right. The third one, I wish I lived in blank.
I wish I lived in blank. I wish I lived in blank. Well, I mean, I live where I want to live, which is Southern California, and I know you're not necessarily putting geographic limitations on this question.
Yep.
But I live in Southern California because I love living in Southern California. So I wish I lived in a a house that didn't have any problem. My house is 51 years old, and
Southern California. Yep.
I get errant leaks coming from the walls every once in a while, which is even harder to deal with while I'm paying off the house too. Right. So I wish I lived in the area I live in now in Southern California, but in a brand new house that didn't have any problems and that was paid for. That's what I wish I lived in.
All right. Okay. And then final one. I wish people would stop blank.
That's my favorite question.
I know it is. It's probably a laundry list.
I wish people would stop judging each other. I wish people would stop taking a nugget or a kernel of information, a statement, a line, a single sentence or a single view or a single picture or something, and making a judgment call on that person's worth as a human being on this earth. It didn't used to be that way, and it seems like it is now. And I don't know. I think there are a lot of causes of it. There's no one single cause. There's a lot. But I wish that was the case. I wish people took that one little kernel or nugget with a grain of salt and realized that it's one element or one facet of a person, of which there are thousands and thousands and thousands. That's what I wish.
Nice. Look at you with the Miss America answer.
Miss America answer. Mr. Universe.
Mr. Universe, right? I think that was on the t-shirt. You must kiss Mr. Universe.
I still have my water polo Speedo if I need to do that on for my competition.
Please don't. Please don't. I'm begging you. All right, man. Well, hey, dude, like, I appreciate it, bro. Thanks for being on the show and hanging out and working through some of the new concepts here for season 3.
No, dude, anytime, man. You know, I love being on shows like this, and I love just chatting with you, and I think we have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you want to hear more Chris Stark, check out Hacking Your Leadership podcast with myself and him, and of course Chris L. Stark, El Capitan, El Chupacabra, Chris L. Stark on LinkedIn, and at Stark Raving Naked on Instagram.
You can't say that without laughing.
I can't, because I keep thinking about the stripper thing and the stripper voice. I just want to announce it. Well,
it's Stark. It's a combination of Stark Raving Mad and Stark Naked. Those are like the things that
I get it.
Growing up, whenever I would say my last name, people would always say, "Oh, like Stark Naked." I'm like, no, just Stark.
Just Stark,
yeah, just Stark. Or then I started to get Stark Raving Mad. It's like no. And there's even a wine out there. There's a red wine out there called Stark Raving Red. That somebody invented. But yeah, so I chose Stark Raving Naked because I thought it was a kind of owning what I got called my whole life.
I like it. I'll take it. All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show. And this is Life of Lozo, and we are out of here. Peace.
The Life of Lozo podcast is brought to you by Stay Tuned Studios, STS Podcast, The Taylor Shop Inc., 03 Productions, The Beat Brigade, Rhyme Designs Clothing, Ronz World Guitars, The Music Experience, Custom Shirts and more, Local Goods Market, The Art of Kyle Willis, The Josh Saman MMA Foundation, TheMishmash.com, and of course, Jack's Nutrition. If you like the show, please like us, share us, review us, rate us, and anything else you can possibly do to get the word out. Thank you so much, y'all. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.